Evelyn Reed's life was a study in quiet precision. Her work as a forensic data analyst in downtown Los Angeles demanded meticulous attention to detail, the ability to sift through mountains of digital noise to find the single damning data point. It was a skill she applied equally to her home life, though often without conscious effort. She noticed the slight shift in Thomas's tone when he spoke about his work, the almost imperceptible increase in screen time on his phone late at night, the way his eyes glazed over with a peculiar mix of fascination and longing as he scrolled through Instagram feeds. Their marriage, 8 years in, felt less like a partnership and more like two ships passing in the night, each navigating its own silent course. Thomas, a marketing executive, had become increasingly absorbed in the world of online influencers, particularly one named Anya. Anya was a confection of bright colors, relentless positivity, and curated perfection, broadcasting a seemingly aspirational life from her sun-drenched Los Angeles apartment. Thomas was, Evelyn observed with a detached curiosity that was becoming too familiar, captivated. He watched her streams while they ate dinner, commented on her posts with a frequency that felt disproportionate, and talked about her as if she were a personal friend, not a carefully constructed brand. Evelyn didn't begrudge him a harmless online fascination. She understood the appeal of escapism. Her own days were spent immersed in spreadsheets and code, tracing digital footprints left by fraudsters and criminals. The vibrant, effortless world Anya presented was the antithesis of Evelyn's reality. But Thomas's interest felt different. It wasn't casual viewing, it was an emotional investment, a yearning for a connection that seemed increasingly absent in their shared life, in their quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in Pasadena. The distance between them grew, measured in the silence across the dinner table and the glow of his phone screen in the dark. The day the quiet precision of Evelyn's life shattered began like any other. Thomas was rushing to an early meeting, leaving his laptop open on the kitchen counter. A notification popped up, a messaging app Evelyn didn't recognize him using. Curiosity, a professional reflex, nudged her. She clicked. The messages were from someone saved as Anya A. They weren't work-related. They were intimate, flirtatious. They spoke of stolen moments, of meeting up when Evelyn was out of town for a conference, of shared secrets whispered in hotel rooms, of expensive gifts Thomas had sent, a designer handbag, a weekend getaway to a resort in Palm Springs, carefully expensed as a client meeting. They spoke of stolen moments, of meeting up when Evelyn was out of town for a conference, of shared secrets whispered in hotel rooms, of expensive gifts Thomas had sent, a designer handbag, a weekend getaway to a resort in Palm Springs, carefully expensed as a gamid. There were photos too, not explicit but undeniably personal, confirming the connection, the shared space. One message, chilling in its casualness, read, "Can't wait for your wife to be gone next week. My love. Palm Springs awaits us." The air left Evelyn's lungs in a silent gasp. It wasn't just infidelity. It was a betrayal woven into the fabric of his obsession, a secret life built around a public figure he idolized. The woman he was cheating with wasn't a colleague or an old flame. She was the very person who had consumed his attention, pulling him away from their shared reality. It felt surreal, a plotline from a bad reality show playing out in her own kitchen in Pasadena. The initial shock gave way to a wave of nausea, then a cold, hard certainty. The hurt was profound, a physical ache in her chest, but beneath the pain something else stirred, the analytical part of her brain, the part that saw complex problems and sought solutions. This wasn't just a personal crisis, it was a case study in deception, a tangle of lies and fake identities. And Evelyn Reed, forensic data analyst, was uniquely equipped to untangle it. There was no hysterical confrontation when Thomas returned that evening, no tearful accusations. Evelyn moved through the motions of dinner, her face a mask of practiced calm. Inside, her mind was racing, already building timelines, cross-referencing details from the messages with Anya Aura's public posts, identifying discrepancies, searching for digital footprints. The betrayal hadn't just broken her heart. It had activated a part of her she rarely engaged outside of work. The part that hunted for truth in the digital wilderness. She knew, with absolute clarity, that divorce was inevitable, but it wouldn't be enough. Not for this, not for the quiet years of neglect compounded by this public performative betrayal. She needed to expose the lie. She needed to dismantle the carefully constructed facade that had stolen her husband's attention and ultimately their marriage. Her revenge would not be loud or emotional. It would be precise, data-driven, and utterly devastating to the world Anya Ora had built. The days that followed were a blur of quiet activity. Evelyn continued her routine, observing Thomas with a new detached gaze. He seemed oblivious, still engrossed in his phone, still scrolling through Anya's perfect life. Meanwhile, Evelyn worked. Her home office, usually reserved for freelance casework, became the command center for her personal investigation. She used her professional tools and expertise, but the urgency was different, fueled by a cold, simmering anger. She started with Anya Ora's public presence. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, her website, online interviews, articles written about her rise to fame. Evelyn downloaded everything, archiving it meticulously. She analyzed the metadata of photos, cross-referenced timestamps, compared locations mentioned in posts with flight records she could access discreetly through a colleague who owed her a favor. She looked for patterns, inconsistencies, anything that didn't align. Her initial findings were unsurprising in the world of influencers, but damning in their cumulative effect. Stories that seemed spontaneous were clearly staged. Products she raved about were linked to undisclosed sponsorships Evelyn found buried in obscure corporate filings. Her relatable struggles often mirrored trending topics, suggesting they were manufactured for engagement. It was a masterclass in building an artificial persona, but Evelyn saw the seams, the places where the digital facade didn't quite meet reality. She confided, cautiously, in Liam Chen. Liam was a software engineer, a friend since college, pragmatic and loyal. They met at a quiet cafe in the arts district of Los Angeles, the afternoon sun slanting through the windows onto polished concrete floors. Evelyn laid out the basics, the affair, the identity of the other woman. She didn't reveal her full plan, not yet, but she spoke of the depth of the betrayal, the feeling of being replaced by a fantasy. Liam listened, his expression shifting from shock to concern. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. That's awful. What are you going to do?" "Divorce him, obviously," Evelyn said, her voice flat. "But that's just the legal part." Liam hesitated. "And the other part?" Evelyn looked out the window, watching people move through the busy street. She built her entire career on being authentic, on being a friend to her followers. It's all a lie, Liam, every bit of it. And she used that lie, that persona, to take things. Not just my husband's attention. Money, trust, everything. "So you want to expose her?" Liam asked carefully. Evelyn turned back, her eyes sharp. "I want to show the world who she really is. The data doesn't lie even when the person does." Liam leaned back, running a hand through his dark hair. "That's a massive undertaking, Eve and messy. Are you sure you want to go down that road? Revenge can consume you." "What's left to consume?" Evelyn asked, a bitter edge to her voice. "My marriage is over. My life as I knew it is gone. All that's left is finding the truth." Liam didn't push further. He knew Evelyn's quiet determination. Instead, he offered practical help. "Okay, if you're doing this, you'll need more than public data. You need something from the inside. Has she ever had any public falling outs? Business partners, managers, anyone who might have seen behind the curtain and has a reason to talk?" Evelyn nodded. That was the next step in her analysis. She had already found whispers online, mentions of a former business partner, someone who had helped Anya build her initial platform before a sudden, unexplained split. His name was Marcus Thorne. The online chatter suggested the parting was acrimonious, with hints of legal threats and bad blood. Marcus Thorne was her next target. He might have the pieces of the puzzle she couldn't find in the public domain. Finding Marcus Thorne wasn't difficult for someone with Evelyn's skills. He had moved on, started a new, less public-facing digital marketing firm in Culver City. Evelyn didn't approach him directly through official channels. She dug deeper, finding his personal social media profiles, dormant for years, old forum posts, digital breadcrumbs left scattered across the internet from his earlier career. She built a profile of him, his background, his interests, his likely grievances with Anya. She crafted her initial message carefully. It wasn't a direct accusation or a plea for help. It was an oblique reference to shared concerns regarding certain online personalities, and a suggestion that their paths might have intersected due to unforeseen circumstances stemming from deceptive practices. She sent it from a burner email address, untraceable and secure. Marcus Thorne replied within 24 hours. His response was cautious, guarded, but intrigued. He agreed to meet, suggesting a neutral location, a quiet, old-school bar in downtown LA, far from the trendy spots Anya frequented. Evelyn arrived first, choosing a booth in the back. Marcus Thorne was older than she expected, late 40s, with tired eyes and a cynical mouth. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Your message was interesting, cryptic. Who are you and why are you contacting me about Anya Aura?" Evelyn met his gaze steadily. "My name is Evelyn Reed. My husband had an affair with Anya Aura. I'm divorcing him, and I'm investigating her, professionally and personally." Marcus Thorne raised an eyebrow, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, surprise, recognition, perhaps a shared sense of injury. "Investigating? What do you mean?" "I'm a forensic data analyst," Evelyn explained. "I trace digital footprints. I find hidden connections. I expose lies. And I've found enough public inconsistencies in Anya Aura's story to know that her brand is built on fraud. I suspect you know more." Marcus Thorne leaned back, a slow, humorless smile spreading across his face. "Fraud? Oh, it's much more than that, Miss Reed. That girl, she's a snake. I built her platform from the ground up, taught her everything, got her the first big sponsors, and when she got big enough, she cut me out, said I was holding her back, tried to bury me with NDAs and legal threats. She stole my work, my contacts, even some of my clients." His voice was low, filled with a bitter resentment that resonated deeply with Evelyn. "I'm building a case," Evelyn said. "A public case. A dossier of everything she's lied about, everyone she's cheated. I need insider information, proof, things only someone who worked closely with her would know." Marcus Thorne looked at her for a long moment, assessing. "You want to take her down?" "I want to expose the truth," Evelyn corrected, though the distinction felt thin even to her. "And the truth will take her down." He chuckled, a dry, rusty sound. "All right, Miss Reed, you have my attention. I have plenty of skeletons in Anya's closet. Things that would make her aura look like a toxic cloud. Financial records she tried to hide, private communications, details about how she faked numbers, manipulated engagement, even the truth about where some of that effortless money really came from. I kept everything. Insurance, you know." Evelyn felt a surge of cold satisfaction. This was it, the key. "What do you want in return?" Marcus Thorne shrugged. "Justice, maybe? Mostly just the pleasure of watching her pretty little world explode. Consider it a professional courtesy from one person she screwed over to another." Over the next few weeks, Marcus Thorne became Evelyn's primary source. He provided her with a treasure trove of data. Leaked emails detailing fake sponsorship deals and inflated metrics, screenshots of private texts where Anya mocked her own followers or bragged about manipulating brands, financial documents showing discrepancies between her public income claims and reality, and damning personal details that contradicted her carefully crafted narrative of a wholesome, relatable girl next door. He provided her with a treasure trove of data. Leaked emails detailing fake sponsorship deals and inflated metrics, screenshots of private texts where Anya mocked her own followers or bragged about manipulating brands, financial documents showing discrepancies between her public income claims and reality, and damning personal details that Evelyn worked tirelessly, weekends and late into the night, meticulously organizing the information. She cross-referenced Marcus's data with her own public findings, building a rock-solid case. The dossier grew into a comprehensive report, filled with timelines, evidence logs, and clear explanations of Anya's various deceptions. It wasn't just gossip. It was a forensic examination of a fraudulent public identity. Her interactions with Thomas during this time were strained. She had filed for divorce, and the papers had been served by a process server at his office in Century City, a deliberate choice to maximize his discomfort. He reacted with a mix of anger, denial, and attempts to minimize the affair. "It was just a mistake, Evelyn. A stupid, meaningless fling. Are you really throwing away 8 years for this?" "It wasn't meaningless, Thomas," Evelyn replied, her voice devoid of emotion. "It meant you valued a fantasy more than our reality. It meant you were capable of lying to me, to yourself, for months. And it wasn't just you. She's a part of it. The lie, the deception. It runs deeper than just an affair." he scoffed. "What are you even talking about? It's an influencer. She's just a brand. It's not real." "Exactly," Evelyn said quietly. "It's not real, and everyone who believes it deserves to know." His attempts at reconciliation or even just understanding failed against Evelyn's cold resolve. He saw her as irrational, overly emotional, vengeful. He didn't understand that her approach was entirely rational, a logical response to a problem of deception. He moved out, taking his clothes and his obsession with him, leaving their house in Pasadena feeling even emptier than before. While the divorce proceeded, Evelyn refined the dossier. She consulted with Liam, showing him parts of the compiled evidence, excluding the most personal details about Thomas. Liam was visibly taken aback by the scale of Anya's deception and Evelyn's thoroughness. "Ev, this is incredible. You've basically written a book exposing this woman. But how are you going to release it? If you just post it, they'll trace it back to you. Anya has lawyers, PR teams. They'll bury you." "Anonymity is key," Evelyn stated. She outlined her technical plan, using layers of VPNs, encrypted communication channels, burner accounts, and timing the release to coincide with a moment that would maximize impact and make it harder to trace the origin. She had researched online communities known for their appetite for influencer drama and their ability to quickly disseminate information. Subreddits dedicated to online gossip, specific YouTube commentary channels, anonymous blogging platforms. She would release it everywhere at once, creating a digital wildfire that would be impossible to contain. The date was set. It coincided with a major industry event Anya was scheduled to attend, ensuring maximum attention on her just as the storm hit. Evelyn felt a strange mix of calm and anticipation. The process had consumed her, filling the void left by her marriage with purpose. But as the day approached, a flicker of doubt, a whisper of unease began to surface. Was this truly about justice? Or had she become just as obsessed, just as consumed by a singular focus as Thomas had been with Anya? She pushed the thought away. It didn't matter. The data was compiled. The plan was in motion. The day of the release dawned clear and bright over Los Angeles. Evelyn went through her normal routine, coffee, a quiet walk in her neighborhood, checking emails. But beneath the surface, her nerves hummed. She sat down at her computer in her home office. The dossier was open, ready. Her network was routed through multiple secure servers, her digital footprint masked. She double-checked everything. The links, the file formats, the anonymous accounts. It had to be perfect. One mistake, and everything could unravel. This wasn't just about exposing Anya. It was about doing it in a way that protected herself from the inevitable legal backlash and the wrath of a woman who had built her life on carefully constructed lies. At the appointed time, she began. Click, uploading to Reddit. Click, posting on an anonymous blog. Click, sending links to the drama channels. She targeted the nodes in the online ecosystem where information spread fastest and most ruthlessly. It felt strangely anticlimactic, just a series of clicks and uploads. The digital package containing months of her work, her pain, her cold determination was released into the wild. Then she waited. The initial reaction was slow, a trickle of comments on Reddit, a few shares. But within minutes, the digital wildfire ignited. The sheer volume of evidence, the meticulous detail, the damning nature of the revelations, it was too much to ignore. The title of the dossier, something stark and factual like The Anya Aura Deception, a forensic analysis of a fabricated online persona, grabbed attention. Comment sections exploded. Subreddits dedicated to influencer gossip lit up with thousands of posts. YouTube channels known for covering online drama started emergency live streams, dissecting the dossier in real time. Screenshots of the most damning evidence, the DMs with Thomas, the faked financial records, Marcus Thorne's corroborating testimony, anonymized in the leak but clearly from an insider, were shared and reshared across Twitter and Instagram. Evelyn watched it unfold from her computer screen in Pasadena, a detached observer of the chaos she had unleashed. She saw Anya Aura's social media accounts go silent, then frantic, then silent again. She saw sponsors' official accounts being flooded with demands for comment. She saw news outlets, initially hesitant, start picking up the story, framing it as a major scandal in the influencer world. The climax wasn't a single explosion, but a rapidly accelerating cascade. Anya's carefully constructed world wasn't collapsing. It was being digitally dismantled, piece by piece, in front of millions of people. The comments were brutal, unforgiving. Fans felt betrayed, sponsors felt duped, and the internet's collective appetite for public downfall was insatiable. Then came the message she knew would arrive. A text, not from Thomas's usual number, but one she recognized as his work phone. "I know it was you. You psycho bitch. What the hell did you do?" Evelyn didn't reply. She just watched the screen, the endless stream of comments, the rapidly spreading headlines. The digital storm raged, a direct consequence of her quiet, methodical work. The revenge wasn't a single act. It was this unfolding public spectacle, a mirror held up to a life built on lies, now reflecting only ruin. There was a strange, hollow feeling in her chest as she witnessed the destruction. It wasn't the triumphant satisfaction she might have anticipated. It was something far more complicated. The fallout from the Anya Aura deception dossier was swift and brutal. Within 48 hours, major sponsors had publicly terminated their contracts with Anya, citing violated clauses regarding integrity and brand representation. Cosmetic lines, fashion partnerships, beverage endorsements, all gone. The carefully curated product placements in her videos and photos suddenly looked pathetic, remnants of a lie. The online commentary was relentless. Memes were created, viral videos mocked her fake persona, and former fans expressed their outrage and disappointment in thousands of comments. Online journalists and drama commentators who had once praised her were now dissecting her downfall, using Evelyn's dossier as their primary source. The narrative was clear. The bubbly, relatable influencer was a fraud, a manipulator who had built her empire on lies and exploited her audience's trust. Legal consequences followed swiftly. Several sponsors initiated lawsuits against Anya, Chloe Vance, her real name, which was now public knowledge, seeking damages for reputational harm and breach of contract. There were whispers of potential investigations into financial discrepancies highlighted in the dossier. Anya's PR team attempted damage control, releasing vague statements about misunderstandings and taking time to reflect. But the evidence was too overwhelming, too detailed. Every attempt to deny or deflect was met with screenshots and data points from the dossier, irrefutable digital proof. Thomas also faced consequences, albeit less severe than Anya's. His name, linked to the affair in the dossier, became public knowledge within his professional circle. While his company didn't fire him, he was quietly sidelined, his reputation tarnished by the scandal. The man who had chased a fantasy was now publicly shamed by its exposure. The divorce proceedings, already underway, were finalized during this period of chaos. Evelyn's lawyer used the evidence of the affair, now a matter of public record thanks to the dossier, to secure terms that were favorable to Evelyn, though the financial settlement felt almost irrelevant compared to the magnitude of the public storm. Thomas called her after the divorce was final, his voice a mix of anger and something akin to fear. "Are you happy now, Evelyn? You destroyed everything. Her life, my reputation, everything." "You destroyed our marriage, Thomas," Evelyn replied calmly. "I just exposed the truth about the lie you chased." "The truth?" he scoffed. "You think this is truth? This online circus? You're just as twisted as she is. You're obsessed." Evelyn paused. Was she? Had the pursuit of exposing Anya become its own form of obsession? She pushed the thought away. "It's over, Thomas. For both of us. Leave me alone." She hung up. Marcus Thorne disappeared from her life as quickly as he had entered it. He sent her a brief, anonymous email simply stating, "Justice served. My regards." He had gotten his revenge, and Evelyn assumed he was now focused on rebuilding his own life and career, free from Anya's shadow. Evelyn watched the news reports, the online discussions, the slow, painful dismantling of Anya Aura's world. She saw photos of Chloe Vance looking tired and drawn, a stark contrast to the vibrant images that still lingered online like ghosts. She read about the lawsuits, the financial ruin, the complete collapse of the brand. There was a sense of completion, of having finished a complex, difficult project. The data had been collected, analyzed, and presented. The desired outcome, the exposure and downfall of the fraudulent persona, had been achieved. But the feeling that accompanied it was not the triumphant satisfaction she had imagined in the depths of her hurt and anger. Current part characters, 3,000, total characters, 15,000. Month turned into a year. The online world, ever hungry for new drama, had moved on. Anya Aura was a cautionary tale, a footnote in the history of influencer scandals. Chloe Vance was, as far as Evelyn could tell from the occasional news blurb about a court date, dealing with the protracted legal and financial consequences of her exposed deceptions. Her carefully curated digital footprint had become a permanent record of her lies, a monument to her downfall. Evelyn's life returned to a semblance of normalcy, or a new normal, at least. She was divorced, living alone in the house she had once shared with Thomas. Her work as a forensic data analyst continued, the complex puzzles of fraud and deception now feeling less personal, more like the abstract challenges they were supposed to be. She still saw Liam occasionally. He never brought up the dossier or Anya Aura unless she did, but his eyes held a lingering concern. He had witnessed the intensity of her focus, the cold determination that had consumed her during that period. He knew, perhaps better than anyone, the lengths she had gone to. One evening, sitting alone in her quiet living room, Evelyn found herself scrolling through old photos on her laptop. Pictures of her and Thomas from years ago, before the distance had set in, before the obsession had taken root. They looked happy, younger, full of possibilities. The contrast between those images and the bitter, public end of their marriage was stark. She thought about the revenge, the meticulous planning, the late nights, the cold pursuit of evidence. She had achieved everything she set out to do. She had exposed the lie, dismantled the persona, inflicted consequences that were arguably far more severe than simple infidelity might warrant in a less public context. Anya Aura was ruined. Thomas was shamed. Justice, in a twisted, digital age sense, had been served. But the expected feeling of vindication, the triumphant closure she had anticipated, never arrived. Instead, there was emptiness. A quiet void where the anger and purpose had once been. The revenge hadn't healed the hurt, it had merely replaced it with a different kind of hollowness. It hadn't brought peace, it had left her feeling strangely adrift, disconnected from the emotional core that had driven her. She had become a mirror of the obsession she had sought to expose. Thomas was obsessed with a fake persona. Evelyn became obsessed with exposing that fake persona. Both obsessions had consumed their lives, leading to destruction. His had destroyed their marriage, hers had destroyed Anya and left Evelyn feeling diminished. She had used her unique skills to tear down a lie, and in doing so, she felt she had lost a part of herself. The cold, calculating part that could detach from emotion and focus solely on the data, on the target, had been necessary for the revenge, but it wasn't a part she wanted to live with. The process had hardened her, leaving her with a quiet unease about the lengths she was capable of going to. The house felt too big, too silent. The digital world, once her hunting ground, now felt distant, its dramas playing out on screens she watched with detached weariness. She had sought justice, but perhaps she had only found a different kind of prison, one built from the rubble of what she had destroyed, and the quiet realization that some wounds don't heal, they just change shape. Evelyn closed the laptop. The screen went dark, reflecting her own image, a woman who had won the battle but felt profoundly, irrevocably changed by the war. The silence in the room was vast, broken only by the quiet hum of the refrigerator. She was free, yes, but she was also alone, left to navigate the quiet, uncertain landscape of a life rebuilt on the ashes of her own making. The revenge was complete. The cost was still being calculated. Life after the storm settled into a rhythm dictated by work and quiet solitude. Evelyn continued her forensic data analysis. The precision required a welcome distraction from the lingering echoes of the past year. She found herself analyzing cases with a new perspective, seeing not just the data points of fraud, but the human motivations, the desperation, the lies that drove people to such lengths. It was a perspective born from her own deep dive into deception. She avoided social media almost entirely. The platforms that had been her tools for exposure now felt tainted, hollow spaces filled with manufactured realities and fleeting dramas. She occasionally saw headlines about Chloe Vance, updates on lawsuits, mentions of her attempting to rebrand or start over under a new name, always met with cynical online backlash. It was a permanent stain, the digital dossier a ghost that would likely haunt Chloe Vance's online presence forever. There was no satisfaction in seeing these updates, only a quiet confirmation that the destruction was complete. Liam remained a steady presence, a link to her life before the chaos. They met for coffee or dinner occasionally, talking about work, about life, about anything but the events of the past year, unless Evelyn initiated it. He never said, "I told you so," but his quiet observations sometimes felt like a gentle reminder of the path she had chosen. He worried about her. She knew, about the isolation, the way she seemed to hold herself apart from others. "You did what you felt you had to do, Ev," he said once, during a walk through Griffith Park, the vast expanse of Los Angeles spread out below them, a glittering tapestry of lights and hidden stories. "It was a terrible situation. You found a way to fight back." "Did I?" Evelyn asked, the question hanging in the cool evening air. "Or did I just become something else, something colder?" Liam didn't have an easy answer. "You survived," he said finally. "You got through it. That counts for something." Evelyn wasn't sure it did. Survival felt less like a triumph and more like an endurance test that had left permanent marks. The quiet precision she applied to her work now felt like a necessary shield, keeping the messiness of genuine human connection at bay. She was efficient, capable, respected in her field, but she was also alone, and the solitude felt less like peace and more like a consequence. She thought about Thomas sometimes, not with longing, but with a detached curiosity, like analysing a finished case file. She had seen a brief update online. He had moved out of state, started a new job. Had the public shame changed him? Had he learned anything from chasing a fantasy? She didn't know and realised with a start that she didn't care. The emotional ties had been severed so completely by the betrayal and the subsequent conflict that there was nothing left. The house was filled with echoes. Echoes of shared laughter that felt distant and unreal. Echoes of arguments that felt sharp and recent. Echoes of the suffocating silence that had preceded the affair. Evelyn had kept the house, fighting for it during the divorce, seeing it as a symbol of her stability, something the affair couldn't take from her. But now it felt less like a victory and more like a large, empty space she had to fill by herself. She tried to date, tentatively, encouraged by Liam. It felt alien, awkward. "How did you explain your recent past?" "My husband cheated on me with a famous online fraudster, so I used my data analysis skills to destroy her career and his reputation, and now I'm dealing with the existential emptiness of successful revenge." It wasn't exactly first date material. The men she met seemed nice, normal, their lives blessedly free of public scandal and digital warfare. She felt like a different species, marked by experiences they couldn't possibly understand. The quiet precision of her work had spilled into her personal life, making it difficult to connect on a messy, emotional level. She focused on her work, on her small circle of trusted contacts. She took on more complex cases, losing herself in the intricate web of data. It was safe there, predictable. Numbers didn't lie, even if people did. And exposing lies in the professional context felt clean, necessary. It wasn't fueled by personal pain, but by a sense of justice, a desire to protect others from financial ruin or deception. It was the same skill set she had used for her revenge, but the motivation was different, purer. Was this the resolution? Not a grand moment of peace or happiness, but a quiet, perhaps somber acceptance? Acceptance of the fact that some things once broken cannot be fully repaired, not even by the most meticulously planned revenge. Acceptance that the pursuit of retribution can change you in ways you didn't anticipate, leaving you with a victory that feels less like a triumph and more like a heavy weight. The sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Evelyn stood by the window, watching the city lights twinkle on. Each light was a story, a life, a world of hidden complexities. Some were built on truth, some on lies. She knew, better than most, how easily the lines could blur, how quickly a carefully constructed facade could crumble under the weight of exposed data. Her revenge had been successful. It had been total. It had been, in its own way, a masterpiece of digital deconstruction. But it hadn't brought her the peace she craved. It had brought quiet. And in that quiet she was left with herself, changed, perhaps permanently, by the path she had chosen. The emptiness wasn't the end. It was the beginning of figuring out who Evelyn Reed was. Now that the case was closed, the data analysed, and the revenge complete. It was a quiet, uncertain future, built on the ruins of the past. One rainy Saturday, Evelyn was sorting through old boxes in the garage, remnants of her life with Thomas that she hadn't had the energy to deal with during the divorce. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light filtering through a grimy window pane. She found photo albums, old mementos from trips, and a box filled with Thomas's things she had packed when he moved out. At the bottom of the box was a tablet he rarely used. On a whim, driven by that same analytical curiosity that had set her on her path, she powered it on. It was password protected, but Evelyn had long ago learned his patterns, his lazy security habits. A few educated guesses, and the screen unlocked. She navigated to his cloud storage, a backup he likely forgot existed. Among work files and old photos, she found a folder labelled Anya. Her breath hitched. More DMs, more photos? It was worse and in a strange way also different. The folder contained not just communications but recordings, voice memos saved from calls and voice chats and videos. Short, shaky videos clearly filmed in secret. They weren't of the affair itself. They were of Thomas, talking to himself, practicing what he would say to Anya. Recording himself watching her streams, narrating his reactions, his fantasies. Videos of him setting up elaborate backdrops for video calls, trying to make his apartment look more impressive. Voice memos where he rehearsed compliments, planned gifts, agonized over his appearance. It was a portrait of utter, consuming obsession. A man losing himself in a fantasy, performing for an audience of one, the object of his fixation. It was pathetic, heartbreaking, and profoundly disturbing. He wasn't just cheating. He was living in an alternate reality, one where he was a character in Anya's world, desperate for her validation, her attention. Evelyn watched and listened, a cold knot tightening in her stomach. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about a man who had become so detached from his actual life, his actual wife, that he had retreated entirely into a parasocial relationship, fueled by the curated perfection of an online persona. The affair was just a physical manifestation of a deeper, more insidious problem, the erosion of reality by the manufactured world of online fame. She saw his desperation, his loneliness, his almost childlike belief in the fantasy. It didn't excuse his actions, not for a second. The betrayal was still real, the hurt still lingered. But seeing the depth of his delusion added a layer of complexity, a tragic dimension to his role in their marriage's destruction. He wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a man lost in the digital wilderness, captivated by a mirage. And Anya had exploited that. She had seen his desperation, his willingness to spend money, to offer adoration, and she had used him just as she used her fans, her sponsors, everyone who bought into the Anya Aura brand. She was the architect of the mirage, and Thomas was just one of the many who had stumbled, thirsty, into her desert of lies. Evelyn closed the tablet, the screen going dark. The air in the garage felt heavy, thick with dust and unspoken sadness. She had sought to expose Anya, to punish Thomas for his betrayal. But the truth she had uncovered, piece by piece, was larger and more unsettling than simple infidelity. It was a story about the power of manufactured identity, the desperation of disconnection, and the destructive nature of obsession in all its forms. She thought about her own obsession, the consuming need to expose, to dismantle, to seek retribution. Had she, too, become lost in her own pursuit, allowing the desire for revenge to define her, to pull her away from the possibility of building something new? The emptiness she felt wasn't just the absence of satisfaction. It was the space where her focus had been, a void left after the all-consuming project of revenge was complete. She looked at the box of Thomas's things. The tablet was just another piece of data, another file in the complex, messy case of their failed marriage. She didn't need to expose this. It wasn't relevant to Anya's fraud, and Thomas was already living with the public consequences of his affair. This was just sad. A final, pathetic footnote. Evelyn closed the box, sealing the past inside. She wouldn't share these recordings, wouldn't add this layer of pathetic detail to the public narrative. Some truths were best left unexposed, not for the sake of the person they revealed, but for the sake of the person doing the revealing. She didn't want to spend any more of her life dissecting the ruins. She carried the box to the curb for trash collection, heavy, filled with the weight of a life that was no longer hers. As she watched the rain wash over the street, she felt a shift. Not peace, not yet, but perhaps finally a release. A letting go of the need to analyze, to expose, to punish. The case was closed, the data was archived. It was time, finally, to start processing the human cost. Current part characters, 3,999. Total characters, 26,000. The process of moving forward was slow, incremental. Evelyn started small. She reconnected with friends she had drifted away from during the intensity of her revenge project. She joined a book club, something she had always wanted to do but never made time for. She even adopted a rescue cat from a shelter in the valley, a small skittish tabby that slowly, tentatively began to trust her. These small acts of rebuilding felt fragile, easily disrupted by a stray memory or a moment of quiet reflection on the past. The emptiness was still there, a quiet space within her, but it no longer felt all-consuming. It was more like a scar, a reminder of a wound that had healed unevenly. Her work continued to be a source of stability. She was assigned a high-profile case involving a complex international cyber fraud ring, a challenge that demanded all her analytical skills. Losing herself in the intricate details of IP addresses, money laundering trails, and encrypted communications was a welcome escape from her own internal landscape. She excelled at it, her reputation growing within her field. One afternoon, while researching a different case, she stumbled upon an article about Chloe Vance. It was a short piece in a business journal, detailing a recent court ruling in one of the lawsuits against her. Chloe had lost, ordered to pay a significant sum in damages. The article mentioned she was struggling financially, her attempts to launch new ventures hampered by her past. There was a small, recent photo. Chloe looked tired, older than her years, the carefully constructed Anya aura sparkle entirely gone. Evelyn looked at the photo for a long moment. There was no feeling of triumph, no surge of satisfaction. Just a quiet recognition of the complete and utter destruction she had orchestrated. Chloe Vance's life, as she knew it, was over, replaced by a constant legal and financial struggle. Was it justice? In a way, yes. She had built her success on lies and manipulation, and she was paying the price. But seeing the reality of her downfall, the human cost behind the headlines and the online drama, was a somber experience. She thought about the what-if question Liam had posed early on. If revenge would consume her. It hadn't consumed her entirely, not in the way it had consumed Thomas, or the way Anya's ambition had consumed her. But it had changed her. It had shown her a capacity for cold, calculated action she hadn't known she possessed. It had left her wary, guarded, and with a lingering sense of detachment. She realized that the revenge hadn't been about making herself feel better. It had been about asserting control in a situation where she felt utterly powerless. Her marriage was crumbling, her husband was lost in a fantasy, and the woman he was with represented everything Evelyn wasn't and everything she felt inadequate against: youth, effortless beauty, public adoration, a life lived seemingly without consequence. Exposing Anya was a way of saying, your perfect world isn't real, and you don't get to take my reality without consequence. But the consequence for Evelyn wasn't just for them, it was for her too. The quiet emptiness was the price she paid for wielding that power, for becoming the architect of someone else's ruin. She had sought to correct an injustice, but the process had been corrosive, leaving a residue of cynicism and a sense of having crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She closed the article about Chloe Vance. The past was the past. The data was analyzed. The case was closed. There were no more secrets to uncover, no more lies to expose related to that chapter of her life. The digital ghosts would remain for Chloe Vance, for Thomas, and for Evelyn herself, a permanent record of a time when lives intersected and shattered in the glare of the internet. Her cat, a small, warm weight, jumped onto her lap, purring softly. Evelyn stroked its fur, the simple, physical reality of the moment grounding her. This was her life now. Quiet, real, built on small, tangible connections. It wasn't the life she had imagined, not the one she had built with Thomas. It was something new, something she was still figuring out how to inhabit. The emptiness was still there, a companion in the quiet moments. But perhaps with time it would become less a void and more a space for something new to grow, something real and honest, built not on data and revenge, but on the messy, unpredictable, and ultimately more fulfilling complexities of human connection. The revenge was complete. The price was paid. And the future, uncertain but open, stretched before her, waiting to be filled. Evelyn continued to navigate her new life, the quiet precision of her work a stark contrast to the lingering emotional landscape within her. She found solace in routine, in the predictable logic of data analysis, in the small comforts of her home, and the quiet companionship of her cat. The city of Los Angeles outside her windows felt less like a backdrop for drama, and more like a collection of individual lives, each with its own hidden complexities, its own truths and deceptions, most of which would never be exposed on a public stage. She occasionally saw mentions of Thomas online, a promotion at his new company, a photo from a work event. He seemed to be rebuilding his life, moving on. The public scandal had faded for him, replaced by the mundane realities of a new city, a new job. The depth of his obsession, revealed in the private recordings she had found, remained a secret she carried, a quiet understanding of the vulnerabilities that lay beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. It was a reminder that deception wasn't always malicious. Sometimes it was born from a profound, misguided longing. Chloe Vance, the former Anya Aura, continued to face the consequences of her exposed fraud. News articles painted a picture of someone struggling to survive, her assets frozen by lawsuits, her reputation irrevocably damaged. Evelyn never sought these updates out, but they occasionally appeared in her newsfeed, unavoidable echoes of the digital storm she had created.